Hey guys, Tyler Mahoney. We are back again for another Truman Lake Fishing Intel Expert Roundtable dinner, and I've got quite the crew around me today. It is going to be really exciting. We're going to be talking about all the different species, catfish, crappie, bass, hybrids. We're going to be talking about Darren and Hunter's big victory over the weekend in the Crappie Masters, lots of other stuff. Before we get into it, I wanted to mention a few things. One, thank you as always to Nini's Italian Steakhouse and Catering down in Warsaw, Missouri. They sponsor these monthly dinners. They have an awesome restaurant down there, great food, and they do a lot of catering as well. So if you have a big event that you want to do catering for, they'll cater within a few hours of Warsaw. So be sure to check them out for that because they got reasonable prices and great food on the catering. So, and I know Richard, you guys use Nini's Catering a little bit for
the wedding.
For the wedding.
John's wedding. Very good.
Yep. So check that out. Stop in at the restaurant, and if you are a member, just show them your membership, and you get a free appetizer down there as well. So thank you to Nini's. Great food, great folks. And then the other thing I wanted to say too is Anglersport Marine. They help sponsor these videos as well. Anglersport Marine is where you can go to get your Camus, Phoenix, and Low boats. So we really appreciate them being a part of this and helping make these possible. So be sure to check them out. We got several Anglersport Marine guys on the team. So be sure to stop on by. They're right between Clinton and Warsaw, Missouri. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about as well, before we dive in, I just posted a video earlier today with Jeff. We are doing some fishing trip giveaways. Here at the end of the year, there's a few different ways you can enter. It's pretty easy. If you're a premium member, any of the one-year memberships, you've automatically got an entry. And then you can go submit a fishing report as well, a member fishing report. You can do that right through your account page. You get an entry for every single member fishing report that you post. That's a really good way to get a bunch of entries. And then the last way to enter as well is to be a premium or a free member and leave us a review up on the Facebook page and let us know, what your membership, what you get for your membership. Just let us know what you like about it and leave a review on Facebook. And that's another way to get an entry. And the fishing trip giveaways are going to be with Jeff Falkenberry, Endless Season Guide Service, Richard Bowling from Richard Bowling's Guide Service, and Dylan Stocking from Get Outdoors Guide Service, Trip for Two. So we'll be drawing those at the end of the year, and it'll be great, and you guys will get your trips booked for 2022. So really excited about that. You'll have a great time out of the water, and it's super easy to enter. So good luck to all of you guys, and hope you win. So with that, we're here early mid-July. It's getting into the heat of the summer, although lately it hasn't been too terrible. We are still having some good fishing. So I guess we'll start with crappie. And I want to start with Darren and Hunter because these guys, you've been fishing for several years together as partners in the tournaments, have always done incredibly well. And but this was you pulled out a first place victory over the weekend in the Crappie Masters.
Yeah, we've had a lot of seconds, a lot of thirds, fifths, sevenths. We've always done pretty well, but never been able to break that first place. And we finally did. Just barely, but that's all it is in crappie. It's always just barely.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long time coming. I mean, you guys you had one of the best weights. Was it last fall or earlier this spring? You had 14 some odd pounds, and that wasn't good enough to win. Did you guys end up in third in that tournament?
Yeah.
It was one of the highest bags ever, maybe ever, 16 pounds something. So I'm sure that was kind of a shock coming in, getting 14 pounds and thinking third place. That's pretty wild. So long time coming, much deserved, but especially because of the conditions that you guys are fishing in. Hunter, why don't you fill us in a little bit about the day and kind of what you guys were having to do to drop on those fish successfully?
Yeah, so it was it was windy. We were up on the big flats, Buttwater Creek, and you get up there, a little bit of wind's a lot, but it was a lot of wind that day, so it got even more, and we were on the bad side of it too, the waves blowing all the way across the flat coming to us, and we just knew where the big crappie lived up there, like the night before we decided we're going to fish up there and just live with it. And the waves were, they were big. They're almost coming over the front of his boat, and he's got one of the biggest fiberglass boats you can buy. And we just stuck it out up there. Switched to a lot bigger weight. Normally use like a half-ounce weight or a little less, but we bumped up to an ounce weight because Darren made a very good call on that one, and it saved our day a lot. I mean, we got to where we were holding the trees and turning the live scope to catch them, and we just had to just grind it out up there. And I think what made us really like win probably because we were the only ones that just stuck out with it. I mean, we stuck around. It was miserable, but it all worked out.
So that would have been quite a sight to see from afar, just viewing some guy holding on to a tree. That's right.
While it's lightning.
While it's lightning. And it was raining pretty much the whole time. Was it heavy rain the whole time?
It got after it for, 2 or 3 hours, and it just was steady most of the day.
I should have just jumped in the water. I need a good rain suit. I figured that one out.
So you guys ended up with, it was 1103, 1103, and you squeaked out just above second place, but was it .06, I think I saw?
Yeah.
So it was tight. It was tight. Now you guys stayed in the Grand. A lot of people went over to the Osage where maybe they'd catch less wind. I mean, what made you guys say, you know what, this is where we got to stay?
We just know the Grand way better. It's the main thing. I mean, if we can't catch them here, we're just going to run around to all the spots, fishing stuff we have in the past. And where we were at, it's where probably the most money has ever been won on the lake. I mean, it's guaranteed, I'm sure. So we just knew we had to stick it up there. And, you get less boats up there. That's more fish for yourself. So, when everybody left, every fish we've seen, we could probably catch, or if it has been picked through,
So fill me in, for those that might not understand this. You went from a half ounce to a 1 ounce. What's the benefit of going to the 1 ounce in those conditions?
Well, the wind was blowing so hard, it was hard to keep that trolling motor pointed at the fish, that live scope. So he was constantly having to adjust to stay close enough to catch the fish. So you just have just a second to drop on that fish. So that 1 ounce weight allowed us to just boom right to him. And then you could hold it, even though the live scope might not be on it because he's trying to just hold you in that position, the bait would stay vertical up and down instead of dragging, because they were fairly aggressive to bite. They bite it pretty quick once you got it there, but they really wasn't chasing it. They wanted to just sit still, and that 1 ounce weight allowed you to drop it down there and sit still. Now it was a little tougher catching them. You don't really feel the bite because a big old heavy weight on that rod. You just kind of, especially with the wind going, you just had to feel a little pressure and start pulling up, and then go ahead and set the hook. Or you'd see them, you'd swing by and you'd see them taking off with it.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty wild. So one of the other things that you guys had on your boat was the paddles on the power poles, and so fill me in a little bit about how that comes into play in windy conditions.
That made a huge difference. We use them every tournament we fish. I always go too fast, and when you stop in a crappie real quick, we can put them down real quick. But the wind was so bad, a lot of times we're trying to go with the wind. That way, we're not beating the waves against the boat, so we go with the wind some, and it really slows down, makes the boat a lot stabler. And a lot of times, you're going slow enough to where you can drop in that crappie. It made the big difference. That saved it. I mean, we got a couple of our big crappie because of that.
That's awesome. That's really cool, and it's really kind of cool to get an inside look at some of the tricks to the trade there. You caught 40 or 50 fish or so on the day and kept the 7 best ones, huh?
Yeah, I'd say every bit of them.
So what was it that I was seeing? There was people talking on social media about some big fish being selected incorrectly to be weighed as the big fish at the tournament. What was the deal there?
Well, in our case, we knew we don't catch big fish. We just catch big average. We don't ever catch that 2 or 2 whatever. We did in the spring, but everybody did. But we knew we didn't have a big one. It's been taken a 260 one, the last big crappie, and a 220 and 50, and so we wasn't too concerned. We didn't mark any of them. So when you got 7 of them in there, they're all the same, look the same size. They're the same length pretty well, but some of them are a little wider and some of them are a little narrow. You just have a few seconds. You reach in there and you out this one.
Yeah.
And you weigh it, and he was probably, after we weighed it, I'm sure he was one of the small. He was thinner. He was probably an inch longer.
Oh, okay.
Was the problem, but I mean, we knew we didn't have big fish, so we didn't worry too much about it.
Right. Well, and I thought I saw something too that may have happened with another team out there.
When you don't have it, you don't worry too.
Right.
When you know you don't have it, you don't worry too much about it. Now, if we'd have had one that was 2 pounds or at 180, 190, where we thought we'd have marked him.
Right.
But
and you mark them just kind of like the bass guys do. Put one of those.
Just however. I mean, some of them tie little lines, some of them put a little pin in them or something.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's awesome, and congrats again to you guys. That's it's a much deserved and long time coming. So, and Hunter, you mentioned that, Darren, I don't know about you, did you do much practicing ahead of time?
No, one night,
for
a couple hours, and honestly, I didn't really see a fish.
Yeah.
I fished 10 different spots and hardly seen a fish, and that's a reason a lot of people wasn't on the Grand, talking to like Mike Valentine and some of them that fished over there, Gelatis and them. They just didn't see any fish, and if you went out the wrong time right now with this water coming up and coming down and the wind blowing and the not blowing and the storms coming in, they'd be pinned to that bottom and you wouldn't see any, and you'd think, well, this is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And so that caused a bunch of them to make the decision to go to the Osage, because the Osage is fishing pretty good right now from what I understand, and you can catch a lot more fish, you see a lot more fish.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. Richard, you've been in the Grand and the Osage. For the folks that are just out there fun fishing, trying to catch a limit, what's kind of the skinny you've been seeing on the lake here recently?
If you want to catch numbers, down around Long Show, Lower Tebow, that cleaner water down there's where they're really grouped up at. Now, I left the Grand today for my second trip due to, I think every guide on Truman Lake was in a mile of each other on the Grand. So, second trip, I decided to move and go to the Osage, and it was a good call. We pulled out and went over there at 11 o'clock to 2:30. We had our 45 crappie, and they's all good ones. But they weren't big schools on a tree. It'd be just 2 on a tree, or maybe just one. But you got to bait close to them to eat it.
Gotcha. So not a super aggressive bite. Sounds similar to kind of what you were talking about, where you got it close, they'd eat it, but
you get it right now. What I've seen, even I've been on the Upper Grand. I was up there. That big bag Airsty was off the Upper Grand, and our deal was run that half-ounce sinker. There wasn't any wind, so a half-ounce sinker as fast as you could to them. And if you could almost hit them in the head and kind of make them kick a little bit, and then just start dragging it away, some of them would follow it. They'd be this deep in the water and hit it.
Yeah.
But you gotta keep their attention. If you ever stop that bait or just stop and shake or anything, that kind of something's up. They just turn and go back down. But if you keep it going, they're gonna eat it. Or 9 out of 10 will eat it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to make logical sense to me. And any other prey fish wouldn't stop and just be caught.
Years past, you watch, and me too. You'd always shake your minnow or your jig or whatever, and shake it and shake it. If you watch them crappie, when they come up that minnow, you're sitting there shaking it on them in a tree. They don't really like that.
Yeah.
It's all one motion. Get their attention, pull it away, and you're going to catch it.
Interesting. The conditions have been kind of finicky on us here the last week, and I know Dylan, you and I talked last, I don't know if it was Thursday, and it got tough on everybody, and I know you ended up doing pretty good, but you had to work for them. Condition-wise, is the fishing, is it a little tougher on some of these rainier days, or what's kind of the deal there, do you know?
Yeah, I think the cloud cover in the front's got a lot to do with that. You get some sunshine out and then fish want to bite. Heck of a lot better than you get these cloudy days.
Yeah. So are you, what's kind of your plan of attack when you are having one of those tougher days? What's kind of the game plan at that point?
Just keep going. Just keep weeding through them. You catch a lot of small fish right now. They're all grouped up on the lower Grand. You just keep weeding through them. Keep going. Today, I think all of our fish came off cedar trees today.
Gotcha. How much water do you, for everybody here, do you think you have to cover just on a day like that? I mean, is it several miles? Is it? I'm just kind of curious. When you say just keep, because we talk about that in the reports a lot, covering water.
Today,
I'm kind of curious what each person's perspective is on what that means.
Today, I could have kept hitting the same 6 cedar trees probably, and caught them.
Yeah.
it seemed like you'd catch a few off of them, they'd kind of get spooky, and then you could come fish 30 minutes and you come back right back to it and you catch more off of it again.
Richard, what is that? I mean, when you say cover water, is it hitting one flat, or do you make some big moves to go check out other flats?
If I'm down my longshore right now, I'm moving, probably a mile of water I'm covering.
Okay.
On the upper Grand, I picked one spot. We caught all the fish off of one small, well, it's not a small area, probably 300 yards, but every fish come off of that spot. And I went just looking. I was in another guy's boat teaching him electronics and setting his boat up. And I went to where Gary and I had done well in that crappie masters, and that gal that we took the next weekend and won that scholarship. I went through that area. I never seen one crappie. Zero. So I just went and looked. We was gonna let him catch a big if he's there, but we never seen a fish.
Yeah. Lake's level still about 10 feet high. Is that
716 this morning? Yeah.
And they're cranking water pretty good through the dam still.
And that's going to help a lot. When they're dumping stock and palmy in here too, so it's not really dropping fast yet. When they get it to going, you watch what gets caught then, because it's really going to pull them out on them trees on that summertime stuff. They're going to get out in that current and they're going to feed.
And something you always talk about too is fishing in front of the trees.
Yeah, you can put it behind it, but you're not going to catch the fish. The guy fishing while you that fishes in front of that, if the current's coming this way, be the guy up there. You're going to catch the fish.
Yeah. And should folks who don't have live scope, should they be dipping straight down the tree? Is that kind of the ticket right now, typical?
Straight down. That's what we're doing, vertical fishing. We're not pitching to them now like we have been. We just run it down the tree to them and start pulling up slow. So
This is an app that I got told about. It's called Rivercast.
Okay.
You can go through and pick any river in the United States, I believe, but this is Truman right now, and it's falling like a rock.
6 inches.
Wow.
It's down
715.92 is a 545.
715.90.
keep her going.
It's on a downward swing. So I mean,
I use Truman.uslakes.info,
Yep.
and it gives me the real time.
That's actually, I think that's the website. I'll have to go look, but there's one where you can go and look at historical.
Yeah,
you can
same one.
overlay them
Yeah.
and see where it was at that same time last year. It's pretty
It
fascinating.
ain't gonna matter on Truman because
Yeah.
it'll blow out in April, it'll
Right.
blow out in July, it'll blow out in September.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've all seen it. Crazy, man.
Yeah. How so? Moral story on the crappie, still summertime pattern. Dipping main lake trees is the ticket. When will that start to shift? Is that going to be September?
No, it'll be mid to late October.
Okay.
The flats will actually get even bigger or get better, and the fish will get bigger when we get to October. They're really going to group up the big fish.
Okay. Well, it's a pretty simple game plan, really, on the crappie.
Cover
So,
some ground and hit some trees till you find them.
and minnows. I know you guys all fish minnows and jigs, but has there been a particular bite? Have they been reacting better to one or the other recently?
Minnows for me.
Minnows when you get them in the big schools, especially.
And lots of them.
And
Yeah.
lots of them.
Yeah.
Take a lot of break.
I always take not enough minnows and burn way more gas than I should.
Yeah. And speaking of minnows, I mean, we've had folks write in. I talked to you, Richard. There was that one spot over by Berry Bend. I forget
Puddle jumpers.
Puddle jumpers. You can get minnows there. You can get minnows early.
You can get minnows a lot of places, but getting minnows before 8 o'clock is what's tough. Yeah, good spot for a bait shop here on Truman Lake somewhere. Between Cody's, Puddle Jumpers, you can get minnows there early. Bucksaw opens at 6 now, so you can get minnows there early. Longshore don't open till 7. Everhards don't open till 7, I think. 7 or 8.
Yeah, I don't know.
Something like that. I think it's 7 now. I think
That's
7 now.
summertime.
That's about the only three
So-
spots you can get bait.
And that's about it, you know.
And everybody wants to go early.
Right.
Beat the heat. Most
Yeah,
guys.
I mean, most guys are going to be on the water by 6.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, it's tough for anybody to find help right now. I'm sure some of them places would open earlier if they had help.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, crappie, we kind of know the story. Jeff, you're still chasing catfish. You had a heck of a day today. You expect the bite to continue? Tell me a little bit about the catfishing.
Yeah, it'll keep on going pretty good for a while, especially with this water falling the way it is. I ended last week, Friday, crappie fishing, and I went to Bennett Springs for 2 days, and then I was back catfishing today. So, the thing's going to be right now with the waterfall is everything's going to change day by day for me, because the way I like to catch these fish, when I'm catching them in 2 foot of water and it's falling 18 inches a day or overnight or whatever, then that changes every day. And that's, today that's where we caught all those fish was in 2.8 feet.
Yeah.
So there might not even be enough water there to fish by morning time.
Right.
So we'll go find 2.8 feet somewhere else.
Right.
But I like to chase them shallow. A lot of folks think, our water was 79.5 degrees in this discussion I had with my clients today. They're like, why in this warm water wouldn't they be in deep holes? Some of them are. But I want to chase the ones that are looking for something to eat.
Yeah.
And so we got out there we met at the ramp at 6:30. We cleaned all the dead carcasses off the ramp and got the boat put in, and then went and caught bait. We were probably set up by 7:15, 7:30, and they had 30 keepers catfish by 9, a little before 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
So
it
was as fast as you can catch them pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounded like you had some doubles and triples going on in the process.
Yeah, we had chaos.
Yeah, I was going to say, it'd be pandemonium there.
We had chaos. We had some big slot fish, but they were all shallow and they'd run through in groups. But you didn't have to wait very long for the next group. So I had just the first few rods put out and one went down. And I'm trying to get everything put out and one goes down. Finally, we get all the rods put out and you wait a minute and a half, and then one goes down, and everybody better start paying attention. Then another one, then another one, then another one. And you get that all took care of, get everything back out again. You wait another minute or two, and then one goes down, and then everybody goes on point and looking, and then that's the way it was all morning. It's hard to beat when it's like that.
I swear, I thought I saw you share a picture not too long ago. Maybe it was someone else of a catfish that was really beat up.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
And so other folks that might have seen that might not know what that's from. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that's a big male. We actually cut him loose out of sympathy. It was an over anyways.
Okay.
But he was a big male that just come off the nest like right then probably. And he'd been guarding and been down in the brush and the rocks and whatever that nest was in and fending off and fighting off everybody. Them catfish fight just like anything else does. They'll get into it down there and try to eat each other and this and that. And this guy had been battling.
Yeah.
For a little while.
Yeah.
Apparently for the whole spawning time, because he had sores on him. His tail almost wasn't connected anywhere. It was just like a big shredded whip, and he was just bleeding down both sides. Just actual blood. My client was holding the fish for a picture and actually had blood running down his sides. Just a big battler.
Wow.
So it was just really neat fish.
Yeah.
Neat to see how nature can be extremely mean.
Well, it's pretty fascinating that they can recover from that. I almost wonder on a fish like that if they do fully recover.
Yeah, I would think, the male guarding like that and fighting like that, he's not really as stressed out from the spawn like a female would be. I can see a post-spawn female being thin, wore down from spawning and being so full of that roe for so long. I could see her maybe not surviving, but a male like that, he'll bounce back.
Yeah.
They're pretty strong fish.
Yeah. So is the spawn, is that at this point pretty much wrapped up?
They're pretty well coming off now.
Yeah.
It's pretty well getting done. There's a lot of people catching a lot of fish right now. A lot of these juggers are catching fish. You see jugs out, you're going to see jugs that are standing up. They're catching a ton of fish right now. And summertime's always that way. When thermocline kind of gets down to the middle, there'll be fish above and below that thermocline in a deeper water. A really good way to catch those fish above the thermocline and 20 feet of water, 8 foot deep, is with jug lines. And that's, these guys are going out and smashing those.
Yeah.
If you've been on Truman, you've seen these big wads of shad, and they're giant shad. They're big, I call them breeder shad. They weigh probably 1/2 to 3/4 pound. They're great big, and they're all over the place. And it blows my mind because as much as I've fished the Upper Grand and the Upper Osage, throughout the hard winter and everything, there was no bait. Like no little shad, no medium shad, no big breeder shad. It was this year was probably the toughest on bait I'd ever seen on the upper ends of the river system. Now it's everywhere in those same areas, and they're big breeders, so it always gets me wondering, like, where
did they go?
Because it's amazing right now. I shot a little video the other day, and I use that active target, and it's incredible the size of these masses of big shad. And so, jug liners, those shad are all suspended like that. And of course, the big catfish are going to be running up, blowing right through them.
Yeah. Little sidebar, I never did get to ask you, how was the trout fishing down in Bennett?
I didn't even fish.
Oh, really?
No.
It was
I
raining
saw
on you
some
the whole time?
smallmouth. Yeah, I poured the whole time.
Yeah.
I picked a lot of guitar and ate a lot of good food.
Yeah, heck yeah, that's always good. That's always good. So, looking forward as the lake's dropping, you talked about, your daily routine is going to change. You got to go find shallow water. Do you expect, here over the next month, same thing though, flats, fishing close to the channel, ledge drop off?
Yeah, for the next probably 30 to 45 days is going to be that same deal, staying on main lake flats. And as the water starts to cool, then I'm going to start moving in the mouths of the creeks and coves and pockets, and it begins to cool on down. We'll keep moving back even further in the creeks, just like crappie fishing. Same thing we do with crappie. We're going to stay in the summertime flats, and come the 1st of September, middle of September, the water starts getting down those 60s and stuff like that, and we'll start moving back in those creeks. It's pretty well the same gig. Yeah. Always chasing bait, no matter what. Whether you're bass fishing, crappie fishing, cat fishing, muskie fishing, you're chasing bait. Wherever the bait are going, that's where the fish are going to be.
So this brings up an interesting question. You caught today, I think you said 7 or 8 big breeder shad for bait, and you're slicing those up into each one into how many pieces?
I'm actually filleting those fish.
Okay.
I fillet them, and then I cut that fillet, so I can get out of a big breeder shad. I like a good sized chunk of bait this time of year. Sometimes I like a smaller chunk of bait in cooler water, but this time of year I'm using a good sized chunk of bait. So out of those big shad, I'm probably getting 6 baits, 7 baits out of a big shad like that.
Yeah, nice. So,
maybe more, but but there's no need to take more than what you need. I made a little video on that the other day. It's cool when a guy goes out and shad are tough to get, and you throw the net till your arm wants to fall off. Then when you go out and shad are easy to get, then it's fun to catch them. Just see how many you can get.
Right.
But they're a delicate fish. And you see that big Mondo wad. I'm throwing an 8-foot net, and if I were to throw right on that Mondo wad, I couldn't pick that net back in the boat. And I know I'm not going to use that many shad. So when I find those, I try to ding the edges. And when I bring it up, I'll shake out just what I need, and I'll never touch the rest. I'll put the rest over and shake them back in the water. Because we see it all the time. Guys go out and they want to fill a 5-gallon bucket. Well, that's cool, but then when you're done fishing, you just pour them all back in the lake and let the gulls eat them.
Right.
It can be better than that.
Yeah.
Don't take more than what you need, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
There is a limit on them. You can only have 150, I think it is.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. So it brings up another good thing, and we shot a video on this today, so you'll see this completely separately, but wanted to touch on it again here real briefly. So when you're cleaning the catfish, it's really important.
We take the bellies off of our catfish, unless they're pretty small. But we take all the bellies and clean the bellies to eat. But if you don't take the bellies, that's fine. Some people don't like them. But if you're going to leave the bellies on them, you need to take your knife and you need to run it in beneath their rib cage and pop that bladder. So that when that carcass, if you're fishing a bucksaw and putting them back in the tube, when you see those dead fish, catfish floating around bucksaws, because people don't know to pop their stomachs, so the carcass sinks to the bottom. If you leave that belly intact, it's going to float up on top, and then the wind's going to blow it up to the bank, or otters are going to pull them up on dock floats, or ducks, or whatever down there. But when we got the Sparrowfoot this morning, after the weekend traffic, there was catfish carcasses all over the boat ramp and 100 buzzards. And that was just it. They hadn't popped the bellies on them.
Yeah.
And so just remember that when you're cleaning catfish, if you don't take the belly meat, at least pop the belly to where that carcass sinks and it doesn't blow back up to the ramp, because it's disgusting and it's embarrassing to me. Like, we've got people, and it should be to y'all too. We got people that come from all over the country to come down here, and maybe it was their first time to Truman Lake, and it's not an impression I want somebody to have when they get to the boat ramp.
Right. Yeah, and there's definitely certain posts that get a little out of hand on social media with people talking about it too. So it's not that it's unknown about. It's just that, like you said, some folks don't know to puncture that swim bladder and get it to sink. Because there's, I don't know, 9 or 10 that we moved.
Bunch of that we moved.
Yeah,
We'd already cleaned
and
off
I, right. Because I got there a few hours later.
Yeah.
So when you got there, they were still all fresh.
So I get it if people don't know, but that's the whole reason we're discussing this is so somebody might learn.
Right.
Possibility.
Exactly. So, great stuff there on the catfish. I want to get into the bass fishing a little bit, Darren, and this is one of those things for members out there. You see, we cover the catfish cropping hybrids quite a bit, and we do as much as we can on the bass as well. But it's been kind of hard this year to get a report on bass fishing because conditions have been fluctuating so much. So, Darren, I just wanted to see if you'd had any updates here on the bass fishing and kind of discuss a little bit about why the bass fishing's been kind of tough. So,
well, earlier, we talked about the water come up and it was coming down and how they should be getting out on pull points, but the year's been running a little bit late with the spawn, and the bass had really not finished spawning. There were still several spawning, so they really didn't move out on the pull points. The spawn's over now, and this water falling like it should. There's a bass tournament this weekend, and I will be shocked if there's not some big stringers brought in this weekend. I did go for a couple hours the other day. Well, it had been last weekend. Me and my wife was out on the lake, and I just happened to go by. It was a pull point, one of them ledge points with some current going across it, and I seen a bunch of fish working up in the bushes, and I just figured it was carp and pulled up there, and there's them big breeder shatters, and hundreds of them. I told my wife, I bet you I catch a big old largemouth out of one of these bushes. And I did. I flipped a jig in there and caught one just right around 5 pounds. I think there'll be some good stringers waiting this weekend. It's really set up for it now. And as this water's falling, and it's just about to that right level.
Yeah.
The creeks have been really good. And the rivers, up the Osage and way up the Palmy, the rivers and creeks up in there have been good because of the high water. Them are silted in, and you can't get in them when it's a normal pool. But it's been good. But now that the spawn's over, them fish will pull out and get on these pull points and feed up on these same shad to catfish and crappie and some of that stuff's eaten. But I'll be shocked if it's not locked in.
Yeah. Well, and that'd be a pretty stark contrast from one of the other tournaments recently. I think it had 20-25 boats in it.
Yeah.
With some good fishermen competing, and it took 7 pounds.
I know. That was the day I caught that 5-pounder in 2 hours. I wish I'd have fished that thing. I think I might have been able to find another 2-pounder somewhere.
Right.
In 8 hours, but maybe not. It's
7
been tough.
pounds?
7 pounds. And I don't know how many fish that was. Do you know if that was 5 fish?
Yeah,
5 fish, 7
It's been
pounds.
5 release fish.
I've been baby really.
Yeah.
But, this lake's done that before. I remember several years ago a Bass World that had a lot of boats in it. It only took like 6 or 7 pounds to win it. It was a big tournament. It can get stingy when that water gets up. When it falls, it helps. When it's up and falling in the spring, it really doesn't when they're still on the spawn. Because everybody wants, I think a lot of it is everybody's thinking they should be on the pull points. And so everybody goes out there and really they're still back in the pockets. But they're really hard to catch back there, especially when it gets up too high. You don't have a lot of bushes. You got a lot of thorn trees and stuff up shallow. They don't like thorn trees, I don't think. I don't like them. So
Yeah.
You ever get in on that when they're suspended in those cedar tops?
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm telling you, it ain't been real long ago that I was running crappie trips in them cedar trees. And every day we would catch a limit of keeper largemouth, just crappie fishing. And some of them was dang nice ones.
I remember pulling up on a flat one time, and you were there crappie fishing, catching a big one on a cedar flat. He had a guy trip, and me and my partner pulled up in a tournament. It was a little later than this.
Yeah.
It was more in the summer, and the bass are like the crappie. They'll move to the flats as it gets hot. They'll move shallow on this lake. They get shallow. And we pulled up there, and of course, Jeff hollers, "Oh, hey, you all watch, there's a couple professional bassmen." And we're like, "Yeah, right." And I'm not kidding. I stood up on the very first tree and flipped a jig in and caught a 518. And it was like, wow. And we caught 21 pounds down that tree row in a matter of 30 minutes.
Wow.
And it was so.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Jeff is my lucky guy, but I can't ever find him.
Right.
I'm looking for him all the time. But
Man, so your clients that day had been like,
Oh, it was
you you weren't joking.
Yeah.
Wow.
that was just one of them days where you pull up to the right spot at the right time.
Mhm.
But no, I can't imagine it's not going to be on fire this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be a big turnout and there'll be some big stringers caught.
Now, what? So this time of year, pull points. What's the bait of choice? What's the tactics going into it?
There'll be all different kinds. They'll be catching them on deep diving crankbaits. They'll catch them on big worms with big weights on them. Carolina rigs, still good. Football head jigs, but you'll use heavy weights because the current's going to be stout. And so you'll have to use heavy weights because you want that bait to stay, hold for you, not just tumble. You want it to tumble some, but not tumble just plumb away. So you'll be using that ounce stuff or better. A lot of the new thing now is these big jig heads. They're Magnum shaky heads is what they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're throwing big 10-inch with big 1 ounce 7 and 8 aught hooks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're throwing them out and using that, but that'll be the bait of choices. I mean, you'll never know which one. I would imagine it'll be a crankbait, big worm deal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, football head jig's always good, but it'll crankbait, big worm deal is what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Somebody will pop them on Carolina rigs too. It's a good.
Yeah.
They'll be Carolina rig and a brush hog or a big Magnum bait, but
Yeah.
they're eating these big shads. What they're eating, and you need to throw a big bait.
Mm-hmm.
You don't catch big fish, throw a big bait. It's
Get
not
DD22.
DD22s. I don't like DD22s on Truman. It's just the fish don't get as deep as I don't fish for them as deep. They might be out there, but I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I like a DT16 or something like that. That's about the right depth for me. Now you're gonna catch some walleye while you're doing it.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. The walleye are getting thick on this lake, but you get that current, especially in the morning. We'll throw a lot of crankbaits in the morning, but it'll be one of them deals. There's 20 or 30 spots that probably really can be good, but there's probably 10 that are awesome, and you got to be one of them guys that gets there. So the big boats make a big difference right now if you can beat the guy there.
Yeah.
It's a rat race. Because I've seen guys pull up on a spot. I went and practiced a spot, and it's not too far from Bucksall, and I just made 3 casts and had 3 like the Yankee Carolina rig out of my hand. And I didn't set the hook on none of them, just reeled it in, called my partner, said I'm done, I know where we're going. Rounded the corner, and we were like boat 20. And we thought we got this spot.
Yeah.
We rounded the corner, well boat 3 was already there.
Oh.
And when we went by, both of them were hooked up, and we seen fish flopping in their floorboard of their boat. So they already had 4. 2 on and 2 in the boat already.
Oh my
And I was like, oh. And they won that tournament.
Yeah.
And they never leave. You just stay there. Once you get it, you stay there. Because they'll be like the catfish. They'll bite real good, then they'll quit, and then they'll move back in. But you might have a couple hours, but you better not leave.
Yeah.
Because that other guy will pull in there and get you.
Yeah. So some of the guys like to fish cleaner water, dirtier water, depending on their preference, comfortability. What's the water quality looking like all over the lake right now in various areas?
I'm fishing iced tea where I'm at.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not muddy, but it's just, like I was saying today, it's brackish almost, just where it's a real tea color, It's not something that we see a lot because we don't have a whole lot of vegetation.
Yeah.
But right now, with the water up and all the vegetation, it gives it that brackish iced tea color, and that's the water I'm fishing right now.
Yeah.
Which is making my blue cats look like black cats.
Yeah.
They're very, very, very dark.
Yeah. Is the Osage, is it cleaning up pretty good or still got a pretty strong sting to it?
Nope, it's looking good, and there's not many floaters, so
Yeah.
they're very fishable.
Okay.
You'll see them probably 8 inches.
Gotcha. Lower Lake, have you guys been down towards anywhere within a few miles of the dam to see what that's looking like right now?
I have.
That's usually the cleanest most of the time.
I put in at Bucksaw on Friday on my crappie trip
Mm-hmm.
and ran down from Bucksaw downstream where everybody's been fishing and pulled up and there's a couple laydowns there and caught one little black crappie about that long. And I was like, I hit a couple more trees and I'm not into fishing. I want to be catching.
Right.
And I don't care if I got to weed through little ones. I told my people, I said, reel them in. We're going for a ride. So we left Bucksaw and we ran all the way up to Windsor Crossing and fished up there
Mm-hmm.
and caught them real good. But the water over there is like clear. Like clear.
Yeah.
It looks really nice down there.
Yeah.
But I know I seen Cody the other day said it was starting to pull some mud down from the Osage, so it might dirty up.
Yeah.
We've seen times where it's been dirtier down there than it has upriver.
Mm.
You know, and I think you're probably going to see that here pretty soon with them pulling that water like that.
Yeah. Well, the last species I kind of wanted to touch on, and I know you guys don't specifically target these all the time, but I know you know a little bit about it. The hybrid and the white bass fishing. From what it looks like and sounds like, talking to Cody and some of the other guides, it's pretty on fire. Even a slow day is on fire. So, kind of curious, do you guys accidentally hook into a hybrid far up on the Grand in the Osage where you're crappie fishing sometimes?
Once in a while, yep.
Yeah.
Been seeing a lot of white bass schooling out the water all day long.
Really?
Yeah, they bust. They've been busting.
Everywhere.
Every-
busted.
And is that occurring on like sunny days, cloudy days?
Everywhere.
Every day.
All these shatter up.
Doing
Yeah.
it in the rain today.
Yeah.
All these shatter up, so they're running through them. And they're busting like crazy.
Are
It's
they?
typical.
Yeah.
And it's that time of year.
Yeah. Are they staying up for a while, or is it just like up for a few seconds, down, up for a few seconds, down?
Some of the schools are staying up for a long time.
Mm.
And your clients say, boy, look over there. Shoot, I don't want to go over there.
If someone wants to target them, I know you can throw pretty much anything at a white bass: crankbait, rattle trap, little poppers. And is there anything in particular that you guys, when you do go chase them, that you like to throw at them?
When they're up on top like that, just a big rooster tail.
Mhm.
It's hard to beat.
Yeah, it's hard to beat the rooster tail. I like a single hook, so a 3-inch white curly tail or a
Mhm.
little fishy or something like that. I like a single hook, like an 8-ounce jig head with a white little fishy on it,
Mhm.
cream baits. I don't like treble hooks.
Yeah.
You're going to get stuck.
Yeah.
It's just how it's going to be.
Yeah.
The people are going to get stuck.
With the rooster tail, it's a good idea to take the treble hook off and put
Put a single hook
Mhm.
on it.
It works really good.
Yeah.
Because what people do, like throwing a spoon or anything, they get it up here and then they lift the fish up and they grab the line
Mhm.
and then the fish is flopping and comes off.
Yep.
Boom, treble hook right
Yep.
in the hand. Every time.
Yep.
So I hate anything with a treble hook. I don't like treble hooks at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. I fished for him quite a bit, but we did a trip on Stockton with Chris Nelson last fall, and I was helping Chris do some guide trips, and we were throwing spoons with trebles, and it got to a point where we were not allowing the clients to handle it whatsoever,
Oh, absolutely.
because it was just so many close calls. Now, I will say, and multiple of you guys work with Gorilla Grip. We had those Gorilla Grip fingerless.
Yep.
Those were a lifesaver.
And spines on the white bass, absolutely.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, you still had kind of the dexterity with your fingers to work, but a lot less issues. And
Only way to roll.
but again, with those treble hooks too, with the white bass, depending on the size of the white bass, a lot of times they'll eat it really well, and that whole treble hook is in there, and then you're sitting there trying to get it out of there while the fish are still busting, and you're already thinking about the next one,
Yep.
and you're missing out on some fishing time. So going with the single hook definitely has a lot of merit to it. Not to mention the fact that if you're out with a little crew, 2 or 3 people, and everyone's
Yeah.
winging, there was a couple little kids we had to take some casting privileges away because it was getting a little hairy. But
If you can find those cream baits, little fishies, those are hard to beat.
yeah,
I mean, very hard to beat
yeah,
when it comes to white bass fishing or hybrid fish.
I'm gonna have to look that one up. I'm not sure I'm familiar with that.
It's got like a wedge on the tail on both
You
sides.
can get them at Walmart.
No.
Yeah.
Walmart sells
Yeah.
them. Just super glue it right to the head
Mhm.
when you put it on, and you can catch a bunch of them
Wear 'em
off
out.
of it.
It's fun.
Now, when you're throwing into those schools, especially with like a rooster tail, are you fishing it really fast, trying to keep it as close to the surface as
Keep it on
possible?
top, yep.
Yeah. Yep, that's, I mean, skipping a spoon across, we've done a lot, and that seems to get them going, so. But no, the other guys, so Jack Vanderpool, Cody Van Atten, Jim Kuda, Bob Bates, all part of Truman Lake Fishing Intel. A lot of those guys are live bait fishermen, and Bob he will not do live bait fishing, he does all artificial. But the live bait guys are doing really, really well, and I think doing really well earlier on in the mornings, and you know, there's a few spots on Truman that are particularly good on the lower lake and the
And I
dam.
think they free line a lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'll hook that shad through the nose, a little circle hook or whatever.
Yeah.
No weight.
Yeah,
Just free line them out.
that's exactly what a lot of them have been doing, just dropping it out, because Cody and Jack both have been talking about catching hybrids like 2-3 feet under the water. You're
Yeah.
not dropping those down with a weight. So,
Yeah.
but they're getting a lot of catfish. To your point earlier about the suspended catfish, they're still getting a lot of those in the process as well.
Yippers.
But now that lower lake, the dam bite, from what I understand, has slowed down a little bit. But cruise around a few miles, look at your graphs, and you'll see those big old schools. So, but no, with that, you know, another great episode in the books. If you guys have any questions, comments, topics you want to see us cover in the future, just let us know, and we'll definitely get to it. We do these every single month, and looking forward to getting into this fall when things start to change a little bit. You're not going to see a lot of things changing right now in the middle of the summertime, because things are pretty consistent, except maybe with the bass fishing. Hopefully
It's going to turn around.
get a little better here soon. So, and so we'll probably have some bass reports later this week. Talking with David McCormick and Darren ahead of this tournament, and do some tournament coverage as well of that upcoming Joe Bass. So, but with that, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check all these guys out on Facebook, on social media. These are the top tier guys on the lake. So if you're looking to book a trip, these are the guys you need to call. Dylan Stocking from Get Outdoors Guide Service, Richard Bowling's Guide Service, Darren Langford, he doesn't really do guide trips, but you gotta follow him anyways because he catches a lot of fish. And Hunter Bowling, who helps his dad Richard on trips and is tournament extraordinaire with Darren, and Jeff Falkenberry, Endless Season Guide Service. And 1.2 I want to bring up, Jeff and I just recorded our latest episode of the Endless Season Outdoors podcast, talking with Chris Brook, the Truman Lake Fisheries Management Biologist. That's available to everybody at TrumanLakeFishingIntel.com. You can watch it on Jeff's Endless Season Guide Service Facebook page. You can listen to it pretty much anywhere you get your podcast, but we had 2 episodes with him. This was the second part, talking about Truman Lake and all the different species in the lake. This last episode we were talking about walleye, hybrids, spoonbill,
Stocked fish.
And answered a few viewer questions as well from the first episode. So if you missed that, go watch the first episode, and then second episode, you'll see some of the questions that got answered that came up from that. Really, really good and informative, and we'll definitely be staying in touch with him here in the future and revisiting with him to talk about all the latest things going on. So anyway, we appreciate you guys being members and watching this, sharing this, and letting folks know the type of information we're putting out. The website's growing like crazy, and we're looking forward to the rest of this year and moving on into 2022 and keep getting bigger and better. We want to thank Nini's Italian Steakhouse and Catering one more time, and Englishport Marine for helping make these possible. And we'll look forward to catching you guys on the next one. Thanks a bunch.